crazy mother.
With the head of a bull, the body of a man, and the legs of a moo milk cow, we got Tribal Minotaurs. This deck is running in at $50 or 9 ticks if you're playing on MTGO, and without further ado, let's get into our Minotaurs. The first card we have in this category is Bomat Courier, which is not a Minotaur, so you're probably wondering, what kind of bullshit Minotaur deck is this? Well, we don't have any one-drop Minotaurs, so we're running this card instead. It is a 1/1/4/1 haste artifact creature that when it attacks, you exile a top card of your library face down underneath it realistically, and then you may pay 1 red, discard your hand, sacrifice it, and put all cards that it is exiled into your hand. So it allows you to refill your hand if you kind of are playing this mid to late game. It does some fun stuff. We need a 1-drop. Okay, actual Minotaurs we have. In the 2-drop slot, we have Sardian Cliffstomper and Burning-Fist Minotaur. Cliffstomper is a 0/4, so it is kind of a blocker in the early game, but once you have 4 or more mountains, it gets +X/+O, where X is the number of mountains you control on your turn. So it is a attack in, good card, block, otherwise card. Burning-Fist Minotaur, on the other hand, is a 2/1 first strike, which is always nice, and you can pay 1 and a red, discard a card. Burning-Fist gets +2/+O until end of turn. The nice thing about this card is it plays really well with some of the stuff in our 3-drop slot. Glint-Horn Buccaneer and Ragemonger. Glint-Horn plays really well with a lot of other cards because whenever you discard a card, Glint-Horn Buccaneer deals 1 damage to each opponent. Additionally, it also has the ability of pay 1 and a red, discard a card, draw a card, activate this ability only if it is attacking, again feeding into its own synergy and filtering the cards out of your hand. Ragemonger is a utility card. We're only running one of them because sometimes we want to draw it, but honestly it's kind of the card I would look to replace first if I was to add something else to this deck. Minotaur spells you cast cost 1 black and 1 red less. This cannot reduce the cost of colorless mana, only colored mana. Next, we have Rageblood Shaman and Neheb the Worthy. Rageblood, probably one of the key cards in this deck. Other Minotaurs you control get +1/+1 and trample, so it is a lord, and it gives things trample so they can't jump block, which is really funny for me. And then Neheb the Worthy, which we're only running 3 of because it is a legendary creature and we don't ever want to draw more than one of them realistically, is other Minotaurs you control get first strike. Awesome. It also has first strike, which is, a thing. And then as long as you have 1 or fewer cards in your hand, Minotaurs you control get +2/+O. And whenever Neheb the Worthy deals combat damage to a player, each player discards a card. Once again, playing very well with Glint-Horn. A little bit of synergies. We got some synergies going on here, which is the whole point of the deck. The last 2 Minotaurs we have is Fanatic of the Mogis, Kragma the Warcaller. These cards are the top of our curve. Fanatic, when it enters play, it deals damage to each opponent equal to our devotion to red, so it's a way for us to ping our opponents without actually having to swing in. And then the Warcaller. Minotaurs you control have haste, and whenever a Minotaur you control attacks, it gets +2/+O until end of turn. Okay, now let's move into cards that are awesome, that are not Minotaurs. We have Lightning Bolt, Undying Malice, and Unearth. Lightning Bolt, obviously, is just the premium direct damage spell. 1 mana, 3 damage, what's not to love? As far as Undying Malice is concerned, it is referred to as a scam card. Modern, and just Magic in general, is full of removal. So, whenever your opponent decides they're going to get smart and they're going to Fatal Push or Lightning Bolt one of our Minotaurs, haha, guess what? I just scammed you out of that one, because when this creature dies, return to the battlefield tapped under its owner's control with a +1/+1 counter. So it allows us to kind of get around a little bit the overly saturated amount of removal that is in Magic the Gathering. And then Unearth is return target creature with converted mana cost 3 or less from the graveyard to your battlefield. Because we have a whole bunch of discard stuff, this is going to be playing directly into that little synergy. Again, we can discard a card that we actually want to play, and then unearth it out of the graveyard. Or, if your opponent removes something, unearth it out of the graveyard. Also, if you are interested in upgrading, I think I would rather run 4 of these. Just a little tip. I'm running 3, but probably should be running 4. And then lastly, we have lands. We have Canyon Slough and Smoldering Marsh. Not 2 lands you see very often, but we're running them strictly because they are also mountains, which is really important for Clifftopper, which needs mountains to trigger. So we're running these as a black and red source that is also a mountain. And then we have 13 mountains and 2 swamps. Moving into the sideboard, again, like always, upgrade the sideboard to match your local meta. The first things we have is another Unearth and 2 more Undying Malices. If we're running into a deck that has a lot of removal, this is going to help counter that. Again, you may want to consider running Unearth in the main deck, but I'm going to this is a template. It's a template deck. You can then take it and evolve it and do what you want. Then we have Blood Chief's Thirst, Feed the Swarm, Terminate all removing creatures, and Planewalkers in some cases. Then we have Lost Legacy and Smash to Smithereens. removing specific cards out of your opponent's library, or storing artifacts, and then Bomat Courier if you're playing against a deck that really wants to use that graveyard. At this point, if you're still watching the video, consider subscribing to Giant Monster Games, join the Discord, be part of the conversation. I would really love that. Okay, let's talk about the upgrades. There is not a lot of upgrades in this deck. Honestly, the only card I would consider running, and it would be a one-of, would be Mogis, the God of the Slaughter. Not because it's a Minotaur, but because he's actually like a Minotaur god. So it's more of a flavor card. But it's also pretty good. What a flavor card. So you might want to consider running him. You don't have to, but it's just my own personal opinion. And then, as far as lands, obviously, always lands. Cavernous Souls, Blood Crypt, and Bloodstained Mire. Blood Crypt, Bloodstained Mire, you guys know that combination already. Cavernous Souls makes it so they can't counter our stuff, which is relevant against a lot of blue decks. And it makes whatever color mana we need for the creatures that we are casting, so it makes our both black and our red, which is relevant. And that is the entire deck. Again, not a ton of upgrades for this deck because this is really more of a fun casual deck than it is competitive, but it is also pretty strong. Anyways, until next time though, my name is Adrian, this is Giant Monster Games. As you can probably tell, I'm sick, which is why I sound like I have a frog in my throat. And don't forget to game like you're not sick. This being sick sucks.